Dead Island Riptide is the continuation of the first Dead Island developed by Techland and published by Deep Silver. Notice how I didn't say sequel, because Riptide is basically a standalone expansion. I don't really hear people talk about this one or the other one that much compared to the first game, and with good reason. The graphics are the same, the gameplay is the same, there are new additions, but releasing a standalone package for this is kinda unnecessary. So it's the same game as the previous one, but is the new content good? The graphics, like I said before, are the same as Dead Island 1. It still looks okay, but the post-processing effects makes it way worse. Luckily, there's a mod that removes most of those effects, increase the FOV, and even makes the controls more responsive, which is a big plus. I wish I found this mod before I started Dead Island 1 since it works for that too. Highly recommended, would fap to that. With that said, there are some effects that couldn't be removed, like the bloom, that awful sewer lit steam blur, and the shitty motion blur on characters during cutscenes. Overall, better with the graphics mod, but still has some shit stains left behind, like the lack of PC options. Just like the title, the game is set on an island full of zombies, but with water this time. There are now areas with water to explore, like flooded streets, swamps, and seaside villages. Navigation is not exactly straightforward. Usually you can just face where the quest marker is and you can arrive at where you want to go, but there's a lot more verticality to Palanai, with many splitting paths. Okay, it's a big map, so what? Just follow the GPS trail. Well, I would if it fucking worked. For some reason, the GPS path thing doesn't want to activate on Palanai, so I had to keep pulling up the map, which slows the game down a lot. This is a game about killing zombies, so just let me kill zombies. Looking at the map takes away time that I can be killing zombies with. Anyway, the combat is the same as the first game. Last time I picked Shen, the sharp weapon lady, so I went with the new character, John, the punching soldier man, to switch things up. That was a mistake. Hand to hand is fun if you want to button mash non-stop to beat shit up, but that range is ass. You gotta get closer than usual to do any damage, and getting close to zombies in this game is a big no-no. Also, for some reason, I didn't get many fist or claw weapons during my playthrough, which is the main weapon type for John. I got all sorts of knives, swords, maces, but very little hand-to-hand shit. I can count the amount of hand-to-hand weapons I got with my two hands, which is very fitting. The RNG is wild. When you start the game, you get 15 free level ups, which is weird. That tells me either the game was too hard at the beginning or the game was too easy overall, so they're gonna make the enemies higher level in the playthrough. You can also import your Dead Island 1 character. You can even keep your level and skills too, but it makes the game a lot harder from the get-go because of how spongy the enemies become. There are these new wave survival missions to mix things up. You can put fences up to stop zombies from getting in, but there's no point doing that because you need to kill everything to move on, so might as well just let everything in and kill them all faster. This sounds fun, but it quickly loses its novelty and they last for way too long. There's a water area on Palanai, so you gotta use boats to travel sometimes. They feel alright, I guess. Sometimes a zombie jumps on the boat and you have to shake them and you can run into them too, but it's not game changing or anything. There's now a weapon proficiency system. The more you use a weapon type, the more bonuses you get for that weapon type. I think it's there to lighten the weapon restrictions that characters can use. Since each character has their own preferred weapon type with skills that enhance that weapon type, you're incentivized to use that specific weapon type. Now you can use whatever you want, and you can still keep up with the enemies without the skills from that specific weapon type's character skill tree. I hope that made sense. But wait, wouldn't you get an even better build if you picked your preferred weapon type's character and level up that specific weapon type's proficiency too? Along with the skills that enhance your preferred weapon type, you also have the bonuses from that weapon type's proficiency if you pick the right character, so what's the point of picking anything else? To have a secondary weapon type to use? I mean, as soon as you collect enough of your preferred type of weapon, you don't need the other ones, except maybe like a gun or two for range combat. It's like the devs wanted to overhaul the character classes but only went halfway. They need to ditch the weapon specific skills from the characters and give them something else for this to work. What were they thinking? Overall, the gameplay is mostly the same. There are some new enemies to kill and new mechanics, but they range from just okay to why. The devs definitely needed more time to think through these new additions. It's story time. If you don't want spoilers, go to this timestamp to skip. The story this time around is very similar to the first games. There's just a new location now. Stay if you don't care. Also, spoilers for the first game too, obviously. The game takes place right after the ending of the first game. The crew escape the island of Banoi, and hacker man Kevin flies to a military ship where everyone gets detained. Some dude named Serpo wants to do tests on the immune, probably for a vaccine. Anyway, Yerima bites a soldier dude and runs away. Yerima, if you don't remember, is one of the villagers in the cannibal tribe back in Banoi. Oh boy, I hope that doesn't result in a zombie outbreak on the ship. It results in a zombie outbreak on the ship and you manage to survive along with Hardy, one of the colonels in the military. You float your ass to Palanai, a nearby island of Banoi, where you get rescued by Harlow, a fellow survivor of the outbreak. Hardy also survived and tells you that the government will nuke the place if you don't find a way out, so you need to do what he says. So the virus has spread outside of Banoi, so Palanai is also full of zombies. Very nice. So similar to the first game, the crew goes around the island helping survivors and try to get off the island. Also, this has no forced emotional attachment to some girl we barely know, so that's immediately a 5 out of 10. The story focuses on this mutagen that changes people with the virus. The mutation explains why there are now new enemy types and why the immune has Fury mode. Holy damn, I forgot about Fury mode. It's basically a rage mode that lets you do a lot of damage for a short amount of time. I barely used it. Anyway, you go to this Kessler guy to find out more about this mutagen, and he explains that the mutagen comes from some sort of chemical gas that comes from an underground tunnel. The crew goes through this tunnel to get to a town called Henderson in order to get help off the island. One of the survivors got bit before going down the tunnel, and he was pushed into the chemicals by Harlow and turned into a mutant zombie. Wait, Harlow is a bad guy now? When did this happen? And why did she do it? Because she was curious. What the hell? The crew needs to get across the island to get to Henderson, so they head to a ferry. A bunch of prisoners attack you at the ferry, but you activate ferry mode and whoop their asses. Looks like the chemicals affected you too, and your body is getting out of control. In Henderson, you meet this film director lady. She's not important to the story. You then make your way to the military base to get help. Serpo, the guy from the beginning, answers your call. You ask him about the nuke, but it was a lie Hardy made up in order for the survivors to do what he says. Serpo says he'll send some men to get the survivors. You confront Hardy on his lie, and he says that the lie worked since we're not sitting on our asses waiting to die. Next, you burn some films to signal the helicopter. The film lady is not too happy about that since there are some rare films here, and I think there's a message about destroying culture in order to preserve humanity. But like, there are likely still other cinemas around the world that still has films, so it's not even that big a deal. Also, Harlow is gone. Where could she be? The soldiers and Serpo comes to pick you up, but it looks like they're only interested in the immune and not the other survivors. The crew's like fuck that and shoots an RPG at the helicopter. Oh, and Hardy dies. He was an alright character, he didn't really stand out, but you can tell by his actions that he cared about the survivors. Nothing much else to say. Later, you find Serpo and he claims that Harlow is a terrorist who's after the vaccine to sell on the black market. You track Harlow down to the docks where a secret military lab is hidden. You look around the map and it turns out the virus outbreak was planned by the government all along? Who would have thought that the shady government people also comes from a shady government? Anyway, it turns out that Harlow was injected with the mutagen and there's no antidote, so she goes fairy mode with a chainsaw and you fight her also in fairy mode. After kicking her ass, Harlow warns that if you leave Palanai with the mutagen still inside you, shit's gonna get fucked, calling you an angel of death. And she dies. So you find an escape boat, and Serpo tries to get you to go with him, but you leave him to become zombie bait instead. You get all the survivors onto the boats, and finally escape the island. And they all lived happily ever after. The end. Or do they? Later on, you see the boat arriving somewhere far away, I hope, but no one's on the boat. The camera zooms into the cabin door, and now it ends. I think everyone's okay still? I mean, I don't remember seeing zombies opening doors using the handle, but the way the cutscene ends implies that something fishy is going on. Like the first game, you go from place to place trying to escape the island while some government figure tries to fuck with you. It's a dumb zombie story and it's not very memorable. Just get some friends and jump in and make your own tales to tell. Dead Island Riptide is as iterative a sequel can get, if you can even call it one. There's not a lot of new features or improvements for it to be considered a sequel, and it would have been better off as a DLC or an expansion, and that's how I see it. The graphics are still scuffed and the port is still ass. It's a remaster, but it doesn't improve on the original by much. The devs try to add new mechanics like boats and weapon proficiency, but they feel unfinished. The gunplay is still off, the enjoyability of melee depends on the weapon you use. The survival missions last too long, and the GPS trail for the objectives is kinda busted, leading to a less smooth experience compared to the first game, and the story is pretty generic. Basically, Riptide is just the first game again, but with new features that, at least for me, doesn't feel fun. I say stick with the first game unless you're really curious. Riptide These Nuts comes with the first game if you buy the bundle, and it's pretty cheap these days, so you can't complain too much. Just get it with a huge discount if you want to try it out. What do you think of the game? Do you like it, or is the first game better? Let me know in the comments. I'll see you next time, whenever that is. Later.